Venezuela's international gold reserves slumped 25% in the first half of the year as the country's foreign currency crisis deepens. The holdings fell to $7.5 billion in June from $10 billion at the end of last year, according to financial statements published by the central bank this week on its website. The drop surpasses the 16% decline estimated by the International Monetary Fund. Venezuela's government has to find the funds to meet $928 million in bond payments later this year, while the state-owned oil company, Petróleos de Venezuela S.A., has $4.2 billion in debt coming due and interest payments, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. Officials have assured creditors they will honor debts despite growing discontent over shortages of essential items, and a record low approval rating for President Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela's total foreign currency reserves, which include the gold holdings, dropped to $11.99 billion on August 16 from $17 billion a year earlier. The volume of the country's gold reserves fell 27% to 6.3 million troy ounces in June from the end of last year, central bank figures show. Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Trade, Jesus Farias, says the country is seeking to expand its economic presence in the Caribbean. At a recent meeting with businessmen in the Dutch overseas territory of Bonaire, Farias said as part of actions promoted by the Venezuelan government to diversify its economy, the focus is that of presenting its exportable offer to other countries. Farias, who presented the possibilities and potential for investment in Venezuela's productive sector, said the Caribbean is one of the markets to be taken into account due to its geographical proximity to the South American nation. He also used the opportunity to strengthen and expand the commercial ties between Venezuela and Bonaire. The foreign trade minister said boosting exports is one of the mainstays of the government economic agenda, while stressing the need to continue the promotion of foreign investment. He noted that Venezuela seeks export diversification and reduce oil dependence, open foreign investment with high competitive ability in the international market, and reduce paperwork to place those products abroad. Venezuela is suffering its worst economic crisis in history, a situation that has forced the government to declare a state of emergency. Thousands of Venezuelans angry at widespread shortages, increasing poverty and soaring inflation are descending on the capital city of Caracas to demand a referendum to recall President Nicolas Maduro in a massive protest that opposition leaders are calling the takeover of Caracas. The demonstrators have come to the capital by bus, car, and even by foot from all corners of the country, including from the southern state of Amazonas, bordering Brazil, the eastern states on the Atlantic coast, and the western Andes. Opposition leaders, an ideologically diverse coalition of parties that aim to replace the current government, say they expect more than 1 million people to attend, with several smaller rallies taking place around the country, making Thursday's protest the largest opposition-led demonstration in 2 years. In 2014, opposition supporters demanded the resignation of the socialist Maduro in weeks of demonstrations that ended with 43 people killed, dozens injured, and several opposition leaders detained. But this demonstration could turn violent, with pro-government National Guard officers and militias roaming the streets, tear gas in hand, according to local reports and protesters in contact with ABC News. The country's National Guard has already blocked access to several demonstration routes in the city. A prominent government party leader, Diosdado Cabello, said Wednesday that government sympathizers would block entry to the city. Not only will they not come in, he said in a rally referring to protesters, but they also won't go out. Opposition organizers have called for a peaceful gathering, but Maduro and other government leaders are calling the demonstration an attempted coup orchestrated by the U.S. The Venezuelan president blames an economic war planned by the opposition and the American government as the cause for many of the country's woes. Maduro accuses the opposition of trying to oust Venezuela's legitimate government. He defeated opposition leader Enrique Capriles in the 2013 presidential election, called after the death of President Hugo Chavez. Recently Maduro declared that if anyone attempted to stage a coup against his government, his actions would make Turkey's recent purge of government rivals look like child's play. Just this week, the former opposition mayor detained following the 2014 protest was transferred from house arrest to a military jail. Two opposition youth leaders arrested more than 2 years ago after the 2014 clashes were also transferred from one prison to another, according to family members. The current opposition mayor in the central state of Aragua was also detained, as were 11 opposition youth leaders in the eastern state of Anzoátegui. Foreign press, including journalists from the Miami Herald, Al Jazeera and NPR, were not allowed to enter the country this week. Thursday's protest comes as the oil-rich but cash-strapped country struggles in the face of low oil prices. Venezuelans have been standing in lines for up to 35 hours a week to buy scarce food, and hospitals have been turning patients away for lack of resources. The World Bank estimates that the country's 2016 gross domestic product will decline by more than 10%. The International Monetary Fund says inflation in the country will reach 500% this year and triple that next year. Venezuelans are experiencing shortages for about 80% of different kinds of goods, according to the local polling firm. The demonstration is the latest push for a presidential recall referendum, with the opposition facing a deadline to stage a vote to oust the president. Earlier this year, opposition politicians collected nearly 2 million signatures in 4 days in favor of the referendum, more than the number required to start the recall process in the country of 30 million. When Venezuela's electoral authority required signatures to be revalidated, people lined up to sign again, officially starting the recall process. Now the pro-referendum bloc is asking the electoral authority to initiate the next step for the referendum, allowing them to collect 20% of eligible signatures favoring a recall. But the call for a referendum has also faced backlash from loyal government supporters. In July, a group of opposition leaders touring the country to boost support for the recall were met by angry protesters. While the opposition coalition won control of the Venezuelan Congress in the country's most recent election in December, loyalty to the late Chavez is still palpable among different sectors around the country, even as Maduro's approval rating is in the single digits. Protesters are asking for a date to submit the new signatures. After that, the country's electoral authority would have to set a date for the referendum. If a vote is not held this year, even if the pro-referendum bloc wins, the presidency would stay in the hands of the current pro-Maduro forces, and Venezuela's vice president, Aristobullo Estariz, would assume power, the country's constitution stipulates. Maduro has said no votes will be held until 2017. The worsening economic situation in Venezuela, which has courted a triple-digit inflation, food riots, and citizens crossing into Colombia to buy basic necessities, seems to favor digital currencies. Bitcoin's all-time high. According to local Bitcoins, Bitcoin trading volume in the country hit another all-time high last week of 163,732,150 for bolivars, approximately $16,455,908, according to the official DF/USD exchange rate of 0.1. more than double the local Bitcoin's volume in the USA for the same week, which stood at $7,015,712. Services like Western Union and MoneyGram closed operations in Venezuela due to the exchange control regime enacted in 2005, leaving a huge necessity related to remittance and payments in foreign currencies unattended. Coupled with capital controls, devaluation, and critical goods shortages, and the national currency of Venezuela, the bolivar, dropping against the USD by nearly 40% in a year, the South American country is definitely ripe for major cryptocurrency adoption. Dash is keeping up. A Venezuela-based cryptocurrency brokerage Crypto Buoyer last week to announce that it added Dash to Bitcoin on its platform due to soaring demand. It is the first platform in the country to operate while fulfilling all KYC, AML and taxation obligations. Jorge Farias, Crypto Buoyer CEO, believed that his platform's addition of Dash will make the payment network benefit thousands of people suffering from Venezuela's failing national economy. The volume of the country's gold reserves fell 27% to 6.3 million troy ounces in June from the end of last year, central bank figures show. Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Trade, Jesus Farias, says the country is seeking to expand its economic presence in the Caribbean. At a recent meeting with businessmen, Venezuela's international gold reserves slumped 25% in the first half of the year as the country's government has to find the funds to meet $928 million in bond payments later this year, while the state-owned oil company, Petróleos de Venezuela S.A., has $4.2 billion in debt coming due and interest payments, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. Officials have assured creditor foreign currency crisis deepens. The holdings fell to $7.5 billion in June from $10 billion at the end of last year, according to financial statements published by the central bank this week on its website. The drop surpasses the 16% decline estimated by the International Monetary Fund. Venezuela's they will honor debts despite growing discontent over shortages of essential items, and a record low approval rating for President Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela's total foreign currency reserves, which include the gold holdings, dropped to $11.99 billion on August 16 from $17 billion a year earlier,